Tom, one of the best weekends of the lacrosse calendar, as we'll see 4 teams here on the men's side punch their ticket to championship weekend, which obviously is a big moment for any program. What's your one, though, must-watch game of these 4?
I think it's the one that a lot of people are talking about, Maryland, Notre Dame, and be that because maybe both these teams feel like they don't deserve to be playing each other in this round. Maybe that's more of a national semifinal kind of feel. But, hey, you got to beat who you're in front of. And I think it's really intriguing because I don't really know who Maryland is still yet at this point in the year. Yeah, they played the Big Ten schedule. They played it well. Then they come into the tournament. They beat Vermont 17-11. Don't know how much stock to put into that.
Expected.
Meanwhile, you got Notre Dame as the 6th seed, coming off a win over Drexel. That was sort of one of those tough games where they had to figure out how to beat a Drexel team that was a feisty one at that and shut down Bowering. I like Notre Dame in this one. I know we're not picking it, but the matchup, I just like the matchup with their defensive midfield against that depth of Maryland scoring. And when you have a strong defensive midfield, you don't get as many bad matchups on the defensive end. And I think that could help in terms of the guys after Bernhard for Maryland that usually fill things up like Maltz, Wisnowskis, DeMayo, Fairman, like those guys that sometimes you get a mismatch, but the short stick D-middies can sometimes fill that void for Notre Dame, which has made them so good all year long. Kind of like him in this game, Travis.
Plus, Notre Dame's playing this game at home.
Yes,
it's in
true.
South Bend.
That also is another part.
Hey, 3 seed, congratulations. You get to go on the road for the quarterfinal. It seems a bit ridiculous for Maryland. I like that game. I also really like my game to watch, Virginia and Georgetown. This game, I feel like, has the makings of one that could give us the entertainment, back and forth, great action. You got Virginia, who's got the 4th-ranked offense in the country in terms of scoring. Georgetown a little bit lower down the list, but Jake Caraway, if everybody watched what he did against Syracuse, put on a show. He's 3rd in the country in goals per game. I feel like, of any of the games, if we're going to get a shootout, exciting game, kind of like we had at that end of the Denver-Loyola game last weekend, I feel like if there's any game that gives it to us, it's this one between Georgetown and Virginia. I also think it's kind of a cool rivalry in like the DMV, Virginia, Maryland area. It'll be fun to see these two face off again for the first time in a little while.
Georgetown, really, really intriguing. Like, I'm not sure how good they are, but they could be really good. Like, they could be a Final Four team, right?
100%. Yeah. I mean, they're a win away, and like the matchup with Virginia, like it kind of feels like a pick 'em. As good as Virginia's been at times this year, it's like they haven't dominated teams the way that we felt like maybe they could.
That's Virginia for you.
That's true. That's how they won a championship a couple years ago.
They won it all.
Let's go to one off the radar. There's 2 unseeded teams left, Rutgers and Loyola. Which one has the best chance to win here in the quarters?
I'm going to go with Loyola taking on Duke because Loyola at one point this season was 5-5, really weren't sure what was going to happen with the rest of their season. And they flipped the script, especially in that Patriot League tournament. I mentioned this a bit last week. After losing to Army and Navy in the regular season, come back and beat them in that Patriot League tournament. Of course, had the COVID issue, couldn't play their championship game, but they played probably the most memorable game of the first round, right?
Oh, definitely.
That win over Denver. I mean, you got a good goalie. Anything can happen. And Duke is one of the teams, as great as they have been, they disappear and sort of scratch your head for a little while. If they disappear for too long against Loyola, they're the type of team that can slow the game down, keep it close, and win late. With Schaefer, 16 saves in that win, 7th best goalie in the country there with the goals against average.
Yeah, it's almost like Loyola, maybe it benefited them not to play the championship game, because that's a game I think they could have lost against Lehigh in the Patriot League Championship. They don't play it, they get in, and then they did what they did last weekend. I'm going to go with the other one, though. I'm going to pick Rutgers against this North Carolina team because you got Adam Charlambides and Connor Kirst offensively. I feel like they can hang. Like, in terms of offense, if you're going to beat UNC, you got to be able to get to 15 or 16. You may not have to get there to win, but I think you have to have the possibility to do that. If there's any offense, the 2 unseeded teams left, it's Rutgers. The other thing to keep in mind, Colin Kirst, numbers-wise, saves per game ranks 8th in the country. Another thing, if you're going to beat Carolina, you're going to see a ton of shots because this team can get those shots from all different pieces offensively between the midfield and the attack. Kirst knows what it's like to face a lot of them, so I think that experience helps Rutgers. I don't know if they're going to pull off the upset, but I think they have a chance because of those things. And they played Maryland twice this year, which was a good test.
Yeah, that's a good point. They were tested by Maryland. And coming out of the Big Ten. Get to sort of see how strong the Big Ten is in a few ways here.
We'll find out. Final category here as we look ahead to the quarterfinal weekend. What player has the best chance to make a Tewaaraton statement?
It's the same one who I think made the Tewaaraton statement in the first round of games, and that's Michael Sowers. I mean, I stood here last week and said I thought it was a two-man race between Chris Gray and Jared Bernhardt, and then Michael Sowers comes along, and he has that huge first half. He ended up with, 4-4 against High Point. If he keeps this up, I mean, he's only 23 points behind Lyle Thompson right now, so he has a double-digit game at any point here. He approaches that record, and you sort of get the feel that he could be given sort of that Lifetime Achievement Tewaaraton Award. As Pat Spencer, you could say, might have gotten that as well if Grand Amet had an outstanding season 2 years ago and didn't win it. So if Sowers gets close enough to Lyle, I think that he could definitely make a statement here this week. I know they were all pretty even in their output, but Sowers can certainly get the career nod there.
100%. You make a good point there. Though, this weekend in particular, I'm going back to that Notre Dame and Maryland game and Pat Kavanagh for Notre Dame because Jared Bernhardt's the guy everybody's talking about. He's the front runner right now. Maryland makes it to championship weekend and they're competitive. I think, is a guy that's still the front runner for the award. But Pat Kavanagh has the opportunity at home to play Bernhardt. If he can win this one, he then would have a chance to play North Carolina, possibly in the semifinals, and take on Chris Gray, and then possibly Michael Sowers and Duke in the championship. So if you're Pat Kavanagh and Notre Dame, not only could you run through all these teams on your way to your title, but Pat Kavanagh could run through all the other key finalists on his way to winning a Tewaaraton award. So Pat Kavanagh has everything in front of him right now. You impress here against Maryland and Bernhardt, you knock the Terps out, then I think you are very much in the conversation for the award. So a big weekend here would go a long way for Kavanagh.
If Maryland loses, is the chance for Bernhardt to win it over?
No, I think it depends on what the other guys do championship weekend, because then, like, if Sowers and Gray and Kavanagh are all in it, but none of them really stand out, then I think Bernhardt still has a possibility. Okay. But the other guys then have a chance to really solidify things at the end. So I think it's a toss-up. But right now, I mean, you have to say Bernhardt's the front runner.
Yeah, can't wait to see what happens this weekend as we head into next week, the Final Four. It's going to be fun.